Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Balkan Nerd Podcast. Today is the 10th of June and I'm in Pristina in the office of the Kosovo Youth Council with the executive director of the Kosovo Youth Council, Ditjon and I. Do you want to tell us something about yourself to begin with?
Alex, firstly, thank you very much for the initiative, and it's very nice to have you here in the Kosovo Youth Council offices. Firstly, very nice for the introduction. I'm Ditjon and the Executive Director of Kosovo Youth Council. KYC, shortly as an acronym, it's a youth NGO here in Kosovo that represents youngsters in a national level, but also it represents students in high schools in a national level. I wouldn't dive too deep into the details. Maybe we would go through the history, and we would go throughout how we structure our work in Kosovo. But I would like to hear more of what exactly do you want to hear from the initiative that we're doing, the activities, because we have been an NGO for 22 years now, and there has been a lot of things that we're trying to move forward. So what do you want to hear more?
Yeah, I think maybe a good thing to just add for our audience is that since I'm studying political science in Germany, I'm doing my internship for my studies here in the Kosovo Youth Council. So I've already been around for a bit more than a month now. Yeah, but I think it would be best to just start with the history, like how the Kosovo Youth Council started, because it's also a very interesting story and everything is. It just feels very nice in the whole empowerment and everything to just have youngsters
Yeah.
working towards the goals they want to achieve. And then through the history we could just
Yes, of course.
get to today, what's happening today, what issues are you
I
facing
have
now.
the tendency to talk a lot. I'm sorry as a first beginning. So whenever, feel free to stop me or maybe add another question. I would give out I would start from this. Me as Ditjan, I'm 22 years old, and KYC itself as an NGO is 22 years old. This is very important, and the reason why I always mention it is not because of me, it's because mainly all the people that represented KYC throughout the years were youngsters, because we are a youth-led NGO. This is very important for KYC when it comes to how we approach youngsters, how we approach students and youngster problems in our country level. KYC, it was firstly created or started functioning in 1999. Back then, for all the people that are listening to this podcast, Kosovo was going through a war with our neighboring countries. The problem at the time is that approximately 90% of the citizens of Kosovo, they were dispatched from Kosovo. They were sent unwillingly, of course, they were sent to other countries, and refugee camps were being created all over, let's say, Albania, Hungary, Germany, Switzerland, America, and so on, and Macedonia, and so on, and so on, and so on.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories from the refugees in Macedonia.
Yes, exactly. I forgot the name in BB. There's a city in Macedonia where most of the citizens were going there because one of the biggest camps was in Macedonia as well. But what happened in KYC back then, there were these youngsters, three of them. I have to remind people their names because they are the people that created KYC. So it's Kushrim Sharemete, a well-known actor here in Kosovo, Valyan Kurasane, and Amir Haji Kadria, who firstly initiated the NGO, and they created the NGO. At that time, Kosovo still didn't have the statute as a country. It was under UNMIK administration, so we were basically the 10th organization created in the whole Kosovo, and the first one regarding youth problems, youth structures, and so on and so on. But we weren't created in Kosovo as a physical concept. We were created in refugee camps in Albania. The first activities that KYC was doing was to basically provide materials such as books, pencils, and so on, similar materials to the youngsters, especially students, in the refugee camps in Albania. And secondly, they try to engage them in other non-formal activities besides like normal classes and teaching and all that. We also try to involve them in like social activities and so on in order to work with their mental health, even though it was wartime. But secondly, to keep them updated, let's say, with the information, because the will, or let's say the belief that Kosovo will come back as a normal country and start functioning as one, it was always a belief of the not only youngsters but all the citizens at the time. And basically that was the idea of how KYC was firstly created. So for education and for youngsters. From then up until now, we still have the same goals in KYC. We work with three main programs. The first one is education, which we love a lot. Under education, we mainly work with the pre-university education level, meaning that we work with high schools, elementary and pre-elementary schools. What we're known when it comes to the education sector, and then there's much more work into that, but as a general idea, is the Student Council of Kosovo. Firstly, in 2005, so it's 17 years ago, it was created from KYC, and since then, in yearly basis, we firstly monitor the elections in all high schools of Kosovo on the way of how they are basically electing the student council in their school, and then we gather up all the representatives of students in each school of each municipality, and we hold elections, democratic, transparent elections, very crucial to be mentioned, for each municipality in Kosovo out of, actually 30 municipality out of 38, unfortunately. We can dive deeper into that if it's needed. But out of these 30 municipalities, we organize elections in yearly basis for 17 years now. And then, in monthly basis, we meet with the representatives of each municipality together in order to discuss their problems in municipality level, but also to create initiatives, advocating initiatives, on which they tackle some of the problems that they have in yearly basis. For instance, this year, the Student Council of Kosovo, they did this super amazing report, which Alex is now actually working on it, and he's doing an amazing job as well. Thank you. But yeah, what the students did, together with KYC, of course, is that they jointly gathered up information, statistics of the problems that students have in their schools. And the report, it had created a lot of dust in the media and institutional level. So there are a lot of initiatives now happening institutionally to basically trying to tackle the problems that we as Student Council put out for the society. Besides this, there are also other initiatives, but there would be at least 10 more episodes to discuss all of the initiatives the Student Council has been implementing throughout the years. This is when it comes to the education part. We worked, of course, this I cannot go out without mentioning, we work directly with the Ministry of Education, with the ministry, not the government. This is very important because we were always in, let's say, in cooperation with the ministry. Nevertheless, it never stopped us who's in charge or who has the government. For us, it's important the institution. So that's why we try to always keep that approach towards the institution. The same one applies for the Department of Education in the municipality level as well, because they also have a lot of, let's say, responsibility when it comes to working for education in local level. So with both of these institutions, we work directly with them in order to make sure that the initiatives of the Student Council are finding an ear, let's say. Second program, getting back to the same goals that you said that KYC still has over the years. The second and the third one tackled the youngsters directly. The second goal would be youngster capacity building. Basically, we have that as youth development. The idea is it includes all the working groups, workshops, trainings, other activities, info sessions, and so on and so on, that we provide for youngsters in order to raise their capacities, values, skills, and so on and so on. Then in this program, there are different fields then, meaning we give out trainings on digitalization, we give out training on project management, project writing, we give out trainings on monitoring and research, we give out training on how to be more active, how to create activities, how to find funds, how to join the labor market, meaning how to write a CV, how to hold an interview, and so on and so on. So basically, it's a whole program overall, but then it all depends from the project level. I'll keep this for the end, but it's important also this approach that we try to include both of the programs in each project that we write. So we're making sure that the youngsters are firstly getting the training, so we're raising their capacities as a part of the project, which goes under the program Youth Development. But then, in correlation to our third program, which is Youth Activation or Activization of the Youngsters, would be then those skills or those values that we gave out through the trainings or workshops for youngsters, how to use them now for the society. So in this last program, we try to make youngsters more active in their local level, but also in a national level. What we usually do with this program are the initiatives that we support. Usually on a yearly basis, we have sub-grants, if we may call them like that, that we give out for the youngsters, and then depending on their problems, the best, let's say, idea of a solution of a problem wins, and then they implement activities wherever they think under the territory of Kosovo, of course. But also besides that, we try to make sure that we are doing let's say public reactions, we're doing public approaches towards the problems, we're doing like panel discussions, we're doing campaigns like social media campaigns, but also public and physical ones, and so on and so on. And all of these activities are going under the third program, which is youth activization, basically. The combination of all these three programs, so basically in the general idea, youngsters and students, and there then it comes to the representations and their capacity building, but also youngsters and their activizations. For us, the correlation of all of these programs, it goes out as a recipe on how to reach our goal or mission as KYC, which is enabling an environment where youth of all genders, races, and so on thrive. So the idea is to give out the resources for the youngsters in order for them to reach their full potential, and then that, of course, in the future time it will come back as a much better Kosovo as a general idea. This would be the history of KYC. I mean, of course, there is much more to be said when it comes to the history, the work that we have done throughout the years. But maybe I'll give you two very interesting information. First, throughout 22 years of working as KYC, there haven't yet been 40 people that worked in KYC, which means that most of the people that were staff member of KYC, they weren't here for a month or two or a year. They were here for at least two and a half, which is the average, because most of the people in KYC that get enrolled as staff members, they really like what they do, meaning that we are a bit more ideologically biased. And secondly, but this is very important for me, because those people that were in KYC, besides loving what they do and wanting to like see a better society, they also use KYC as a tool to raise their capacities. And now people that were part of staff members in KYC, you can find them in the youngest deputy member, parliament deputy, used to work in KYC for at least 4 years. The prime minister of Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports used to work for KYC. The Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport was enrolled as a trainer in KYC's activities. The Minister of Education right now was enrolled as a trainer in KYC's activities. The Prime Minister of Education used to be one of our main partners from the when he still was in the civil society sector. The head of chief of cabinet of our president used to work in the KYC. A lot of other people in institutions, in let's say other big civil society NGOs in Kosovo, they used to work for KYC. People in the ICK, I'm not sure if you heard of ICK, it's the Innovation Center of Kosovo. It's a very big organization here in Kosovo. The board member of KYC is manager in ICK, for instance, and so on and so on and so on and so on. KYC has people all over, even though it has a very small number of people that went throughout the KYC staff member, and for me this is a very nice indicator.
And I mean, it has benefits in both sides, because it doesn't only mean that if you're in KYC you'll have good opportunities later, but also, like, I think, or at least I hope, that all these people also take the spirit of the KYC and the goal of enabling environments where youth thrives, taking this into their future positions, and taking this, like in these cases especially, like into the government and into the actual important institutions, and trying, like, also to support you from the inside in a way.
Exactly. I mean, supporting KYC even from the inside, that's not even a discussion. Not just because they have to do it or something like that, but we don't even request for that. Like, after you leave KYC, it doesn't matter. But what's important for us is that when in those positions, do share the same mindset that you had in KYC. Like, do really work for the youngsters, do really work for the education. And it doesn't even matter, even for the people that were in KYC and now are in institution, we still have the same monitoring mechanism. But really, I mean, no strings attached. They're really doing a better work than some other, let's say, historians that we have had in institutional level. I don't want to say that it's because they were enrolled in KYC, but no one can say no to the fact that it has a very big impact. Not just KYC at this point, but the idea that they were enrolled in civil society activities. So they do understand the problems, and also the approach from the civil society level is much different. I mean, if we would be as a civil society in Kosovo, you cannot just wait for something. That's possible. But you need to have at least 10 meetings for something, right? And that mindset, when you put that into the institution, I think people do then a better work, because they're not waiting for their request for this and that, and for somebody to come to you and say, okay, I'm gonna give you this money in order for you to do this, right? No, like, they find the problem, they create the concept of the solution, and then they just request the money. They do a meeting with this, that, and then by the end of the month you will have the money, right? So this is the mindset we believe that KYC gives the staff members, but not only the staff members, also the volunteers, the participants, anyone that gets enrolled in KYC, which was my second fact. And that's very important to be shared even in the future. So the second fact, or the input that I want to give out for the public, is that on a yearly basis, KYC directly reaches out or participate youngsters around 1,000 to 1,500 in yearly basis that we directly approach. And throughout these 22 years, there have been approximately 25,000 youngsters that directly got engaged in KYC. Meanwhile, non-directly, meaning who benefited from our policies, who benefited from the whole social media campaigns and all that, it goes over 1 million youngsters throughout all the years that were basically attached or touched or tackled by the initiatives and work of KYC. And those numbers for me are a very big privilege, but also a very big responsibility.
Yeah, but I mean, they're amazing numbers.
They are. I mean, Kosovo all have 2 million people. And tackling for all these years 1 million youngsters, for me, it's very nice.
Yeah, and also maybe just to mention it, I mean, the demographics in Kosovo, like Kosovo is a very young country. Yes. So I think in these circumstances, work for youth is even more important because like now you have like a lot of young people who will grow up to be really involved and in depth in the processes of helping this country move towards a better place. And I think it's very good that an organization like yours, but also like other organizations, do such good work in helping and supporting young people in not only like achieving some made up goal, but also like giving the young people the opportunity to say, what do you want to achieve? What's your goal, and how can we help you? And I really like this approach.
Thank you. For kids, it's very important. We call this grassroot approach. Even in education, even with the youngsters, in all the municipalities, we constantly have meetings. We constantly have, like, let's say, hearing sessions. Meaning we try to feel, to create empathy towards their problems. And then our work is to do that, basically, to get that information and put that into activities and also policies together with the institution in order to tackle that. Very strong point, Alex. Kosovo, it has 60% of our citizens in Kosovo are under the age of 30. And the new law on youth, it says that all the people from 15 to 29 are considered youngsters. So it means there is a lot of youngsters in Kosovo, right? 60% of the 2 million are under the age of 30. Up until 29, from 15 you're a youngster. So a lot of them are part of the youngsters. In the other hand, the state level, the government, we still don't have an urgent manner of consideration when it comes to youngsters, which is still a problem. The youngsters are not called in every decision. They are not part of every decision-making body when it comes for youngsters, not for anything, but for youngsters we're talking. They're not yet asked everywhere. This is something that we work on. Fortunately, because Kosovo is in the process, just like other 6 Western Balkan countries, is in the process of joining European Union, and as the European Union said that this year would be the year in youth. Secondly, Tirana is the youth capital for the whole European Union this year. All these together correlated with all criteria that our countries need to fulfill in order to join the European Union are having a very positive impact in our work here, because the idea of youngsters is being treated more delicately and with a bit more, let's say, professional and serious approach toward this issue. If we would be discussing the same topic that we're discussing now, like at least, if not 10, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, it wouldn't be the same. We would be discussing a lot more problems, a more chaotic situation, while all these initiatives that I mentioned are doing a better job when it comes to including youngsters in all the possibilities there are. So yeah. I mean, besides all these, we have also another important structure inside of KYC, which depends on the project. It goes in different programs, meaning sometimes it goes with education, sometimes with youth activization, sometimes with the youth development. But the structure itself is called the Youth Monitoring Group. And what we have there is that we have youngsters whom were part of either monitoring processes or research processes. They usually get trained either for monitoring, either for research, and then together with experts, of course, because we are a youth-led NGO, so of course that we need other experts in order to finish reports, finish research papers, and so on, because we try to keep it very professional, and we do them very professionally. That's why we cannot do them alone. That's why we hire experts on that regard. So yeah, the Youth Monitoring Group, they are a group of youngsters who get engaged either monitoring or research. What is important at the monitoring processes, as one of the things that we do yearly basis, is the monitoring of Matura exam. Matura exam, just like in other countries, even in Kosovo, it's organized at the end of the year for the students start finishing the high school. And what we do is that we send the youth monitoring group in every testing center in Kosovo, and together with the Ministry of Education, we intervene directly in those cases that they find the telephone or they find, different type of problems. We tackle them and we make sure to give out detention for firstly the administrative teacher that left the students to do the copying, but secondly, of course, for the students itself. But besides this, we also monitor other important things when it comes to either youngsters or educations. For instance, in education, we are also monitoring the evaluation of teachers from the perspective of students in Kosovo municipality. In the youngsters level, we are part, with the youth monitoring group, we are part of monitoring the internal ministerial commission on youth, monitoring the youth dialogue, monitoring other processes, monitoring the law on youth because it's changing, and we're also part of the working group. While when it comes to the research, we do a lot of research. Alex is getting to understand that in the hard way. But yeah, for instance, we have this report, the quality of education, which then it goes out that raw data can be divided for each municipality. Secondly is the psychologist report, which also happened in a national level, and the same idea, we still can put that in municipality level, which we will also do. Then we have other researches like the NEAT research with the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, the research for the well-being of mental health well-being of youngsters in Kosovo. I cannot recall all of them. These are only from this year, but we do reports and researches every year. And this would be the idea of the youth monitoring group as a structure. I think I talked a lot. Give me another question.
Yeah, you already gave like a lot of interesting information. Maybe just to go back to the student councils.
Yes.
And why are there 38 municipalities but only student representatives in 30 of them?
Okay.
I mean, I know the answer, but I think it would be good to give a
very
hint
well.
to the.
I know the answer as well, of course.
Yeah.
It is. Let me put it like this. It's a hard question, yet a very interesting one, especially for all the people that do not live in Kosovo or in the Balkan region, because it gives out some reflection of how our lives are a bit too mixed up.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, 22 years ago, Kosovo was ending war with one of our neighboring countries with Serbia. And as a situation, Kosovo is still in the war transition, let's say, period of time. So far, we have 38 municipalities in Kosovo. Out of 38, 8 of those municipalities have the majority of the citizens with Serbian ethnicity. Of course, they are Kosovo citizens, but they are coming from Serbia with ethnicity. And the problem is that the Ministry of Education in Serbia have their own curriculum, of course, and the Ministry of Education in Kosovo have their curriculum as a country as well. But from the Artisaris package, the resolution 1244 is very famous. It's the resolution that we have been created as a country in 1999. It says that these 8 municipalities out of 38 that live majority with Serbian ethnicity citizens will learn with the curriculum from the Ministry of Education in Serbia. Meanwhile, all other 30 municipalities, they work with the curriculum from Kosovo. So what happens in this case is that we have 8 municipalities with approximately 20 schools, meaning high schools, meaning high schools, not elementary, not pre-elementary schools, but just high schools that do not learn Albanian as a first beginning, which directly creates problem for us because we don't learn Serbian in schools, and we don't have to. But it's very crucial for these Kosovo citizens to learn Albanian in order for us to start working together as a first beginning. Secondly, they have different problems when it comes to the education system because they have a totally different curriculum and we have a totally different curriculum. And third, because these two, like the first two problems that I just mentioned, are something that we can work on it. Okay, as KYC, we have the will, we would find the money for translation, we would find the money to, I don't know, have a research package, research on what are their problems. But the most important problem that we had all these 17 years is that the Ministry of Education in Serbia don't let schools cooperate, create activities with another Kosovo NGO, which has been a very problem for us because not only with student councils, also for instance with IOM, International Organization of Migration, this year we tried to hold activities just to discuss how they live, just to understand what are their problems and to see if we can do something in that regard. And the schools, all of them, they had to send a request to the Ministry of Education in Serbia, and in every request they responded, no, you cannot cooperate with institutions or another NGO from Kosovo.
Yeah.
So this is the situation of on these 8 municipalities. We're not happy.
Of course not.
We try to work on that regard. But the political approach, it has such a great impact that leaves us a very small opportunity or potential to do some sort of intervention in that regard.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I would say it's very interesting maybe for other people that do not live in Balkan to see how is it possible that between one country you have 2 different systems of education, and even worse than that, you don't have the information what's happening in one another.
Yeah.
So for 22 years now, we don't know what's happening in those 8 municipalities. There might be a student that is being harassed. There might be a student that is, I don't know, part of any delinquent group, or I don't know. We don't have that information. We don't know how those cases are treated, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, also just to to go a bit more in depth on the political situation, because it's I mean, I already knew it before I came here, but coming here it became very clear that the situation between Serbia and Kosovo, or to maybe put it more directly, the way Serbian high politics tries to treat Kosovo, is incredibly weird, and I feel like it's very dangerous from time to time, and it's not helping the situation for Serbia or for any citizen in Kosovo, like regardless of their Albanian or Serbian or even something else. Like, it just creates all these personal fallouts that are so unnecessary. And yeah, I don't know what to say.
Yeah,
It's just
we're
bad.
as KYC. We try to work, once again, we try to work on that regard. For instance, we have a very good cooperation, not only nice, we have a very good cooperation with COMS, which is the National Youth Council of Serbia, the National Youth Council of Montenegro, of Bosnia, both of them, because they are two structures of youth. Well, they have bigger problems than us.
Yeah, I can assume that.
What else? We have with Albania one, with Macedonia, everybody in the Balkan.
Yeah.
We were very good together as national youth councils, but it's not the problem there.
Yeah.
The problem definitely is not regarding the youngsters.
Yeah.
The youngsters in Serbia, they don't care that much of what's happening on Kosovo, is Serbia, whatever. They don't care that much.
Yeah.
The problem is at the politics. We have a prime minister in Serbia who was part of the same government that did a genocide in Bosnia.
Yeah.
He was part of the team, literally. He was part of the team.
Yeah, I mean, he was head of the security service or something, right? If I'm not mistaken.
The communication, PR and marketing of the government at the time.
Yeah.
But yes, part of the staff member of the government who was doing those actions.
Yeah.
The same happened in Kosovo after Bosnia and other countries, of course. Secondly, we are part of a dialogue. In our process, we have reached agreement for 112 or 20, I'm not sure, agreements together. Memorandum of understanding, regulations, and so on and so on and so on. None of them are being implemented from Serbia country, especially the one which says that none of the countries will basically keep talking trash to the European Union or America in regard to integration. It never happened. Even like right now, when Kosovo used the momentum of Russia being banned from the Council of Europe for applying in the Council of Europe, the Serbian Prime Minister, he went out publicly saying that if Kosovo applies, Serbia this time will show teeth towards Kosovo. And maybe for citizens in Belgrade, that's just another statement which doesn't have any impact in their life. But for youngsters whom we represent, for instance in Mitrovica or places near these 8 municipalities where there might be problems, they live in fear, bro.
Yeah. Even here in the office, we had discussions. I mean, they felt like half serious. It still was this like, let's see what happens first. But we had discussions on what are we gonna do if war happens. And
yes.
Like that's
part of our daily life.
Exactly, and that's discussions that young people shouldn't face.
Exactly. Exactly. And this is the worst point, because one of those agreements, it says that you shouldn't do this chauvinist approach, and yet we still see the chauvinist approach. And this would be the toughest part, basically. It was funny, maybe I can also mention this example. We were part of this activity with IRI. It's International Republican Initiative, if I'm not mistaken, but it's this famous organization. It was supported from RCC, and they organized the Southeast Democratic conference, and it's famous, and they do it on a yearly basis. And we met with young politicians from different parties from all over the Balkan. And we had this activity where we had to debate after reading some statements regarding what is the situation in our country. We were all from the Western Balkans, regarding the Russia and Ukraine situation. Everybody from the Balkan was going out, reading how they created sanctions and how they only the let's say the Serbian deputies in the parliament in all the parliaments of the Western Balkans were doing the opposite. They were supporting pro-Russian movement.
Yeah.
It was only Serbia's statement that didn't mention anything. They didn't talk how they are not doing sanctions. They didn't talk how other deputy members in other parliaments in the Balkan are using the same pro-Russian approach. They just talked about how they're working against corruption, which had nothing to do with the topic itself.
Yeah.
And then when we start responding towards like when this and this and this and that, they were just literally not responding to us. Literally. Because they didn't have that information.
Yeah.
This is important. They didn't know that really happened. They didn't even hear about the declaration of Vučić, their prime minister, when he says that he will show teeth. Because apparently those statements, they don't go publicly in Serbia that much.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean,
this was something that we found out.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Yeah. I mean, this in general points would be the approach of the historical part of KYC, our approach, our goal and mission, our programs overall. No projects, because we would dive deeper into the project. It would take us a lot of time. But based on the programs, we create the projects, and the projects are a reflection of the problems in Kosovo youngsters and students. And then, last but not least, we try to give you out a bit more information when it comes to life of youngsters in Kosovo, but mainly in the political aspect when it comes to Serbia and Kosovo. Another thing is in Kosovo what we are known, and it goes well with the first statistic that I gave you regarding the demographics, how many youngsters are in Kosovo. Kosovo, it has a 90% internet penetration in the whole country. It means that 90% of our territory it includes internet access for the citizens. Maybe this is not very interesting for people in the Europe. No, I'm just kidding.
Honestly,
but in the Balkan we have the highest rate of internet penetration.
I think you're better than Germany, because Germany is like really bad with the internet, and especially infrastructure-wise, we're the worst in Europe. And I don't know all of the Balkan countries, but especially for like Romania and Bulgaria, like we're way worse than them.
Really?
And, yeah.
Wow. Well, no, Kosovo, it has a 90%, and it's very famous, and we're known on that. On the other hand, the internet is not that strong, but at least we have it in 90% of the territory. And through this, I wanted to say that digitalization, as a process that is also popping in the European Union, it is something that I believe Kosovo youngsters in the future, like in the 5-10 years, we will have a strike on that regard. We have a niche point there because the number of youngsters is very high. The internet penetration is very high. The focus of youngsters to have a smart or digitalized, let's say, a telephone or a laptop or similar like that, it's very high as well. The interest is very high. So I believe that in the future, another sectoral of youngsters that will be developed in Kosovo will be the digitalization process. I want to raise this as another point of our discussion because I believe it says a lot for people that will listen to this podcast to understand the potential in Kosovo. Whenever I'm meeting new friends in Europe level or in Balkan level, somehow there's still the idea of, is Kosovo safe? Is there still a war zone? Can you see tanks? And no, that's a big no for all of those. I mean, Kosovo is very transparent, it's very democratic, it's very inclusive. We just had the Pride week. We just have the Pride protest. We do that every year. It's not something to use it as a flex, but it's just meaning that we're at that point. We're the second country in the Balkan, Western Balkan, that is working on implementing the basically approving the marriage between gay marriages in Kosovo. That's working on, and only Montenegro I think has that.
Yeah,
Not even Serbia or Macedonia, they don't have that. I think it's only Montenegro that has that.
Yeah.
And so on and so on. So Kosovo, it's very important to understand the whole narrative, and the digitalization part is very important because through digitalization that gives out even more information. You have very nice Google map, meaning you find stuff. At least the street.
Yeah.
Maybe not the bars, but the streets you'll find. Secondly, people in Kosovo, especially youngsters, they understand English. This is very crucial for all the people that want to visit Kosovo. Really, I'm not sure if you had like problems when it comes to speaking with people or finding a service.
Like not at all. And also like something I really noticed is that if the people I'm trying to talk to don't know English, they'll like first of all they'll just do their best to kind of help me anyhow.
But they'll call somebody else.
Exactly. If it doesn't work out properly, they'll just ask their colleague who knows English, and then everything just works out. And also, I've never felt unsafe here at all. Like the people are very open-minded, very talkative, and there hasn't been any situations like walking home at night where I felt endangered or anything. Like the weirdest part that can happen is that a stray dog is like, coming up to you and finds a liking in you, but even they are not like dangerous. Just if you don't like dogs, they're a thing, but they won't hurt you or anything.
Exactly, and see, I didn't say this, Alex did. Yes, really, I mean, for me this is very important whenever I'm talking or approaching somebody else that want to come and visit Kosovo.
Yeah.
And last on this, because I wouldn't take something off of everything you said there, of course take care of the street dogs, they can be a problem sometimes. But also is the information that you can find online. This would be the last point here, the digitalization part, meaning that you can find good videos, you can find good like photos and maps, what to visit, information, historical information. You can easily find, let's say, the best bars, the best nightlife, the best institutions, the best NGOs. But the idea is that through this digitalization idea, we also have a lot of information that is public. It's public online, and that can be helpful for the tourists as well.
Yeah, and also like what I've noticed is a lot of sites they either already have self-made English translation somewhere to find, or they have the implementation of Google Translate, which sometimes that gets a bit weird, but you always understand what they're trying to say. And
we call it globish. When you like, it's this term used for me go there, you come 5.
Yeah.
But the idea is just to understand one another at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I mean that's the important part. We talked for what feels like about an hour, so maybe we can just on this rather happy and pro-future outlook end the episode and give our listeners incentive to come and visit Kosovo, because it actually is a really beautiful country.
Yeah, I mean, it started as a podcast on KYC, but somehow we switched into tourism in Kosovo. But yeah, feel free to come visit us, also in KYC offices, but as well visit Kosovo.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alex, thank you. Actually, thank you very much for the opportunity. It was a very nice idea because Alex has this information, but why not try to spread it out with all the people that will have the opportunity to listen to this video? And secondly, maybe we can have another podcast if it's needed. Let's see the reaction of people on this first one, and if our fans request another one, then why not?
Yeah, and also thanks a lot to you to coming on and talking about all of this. And yeah, I mean, when the reports on the municipalities are done, we could also talk about those and go into details on how the actual education system in Kosovo works and what doesn't work and what the aims and goals of KYC are and how to improve it.
For sure, we can also meet with, I don't know, students and get another approach from students.
Yeah. And if you have any specific wishes, just like write them in the comments and whatever. And until then, thanks for listening. And hear you hear me, us, whoever the next time. And until then, have a great time.
Thank you very much.